And shall we look together at another text from the Apostle Paul? If you remember, the last time we met in this sanctuary, it was for deacon ordination, and we examined practical Paul in Colossians chapter 3. Today, let's do Galatians chapter 6, if we may, reading the first 10 verses. And the Apostle Paul says this. He says, "Brothers and sisters, even if anyone is caught in any trespass, you who are spiritual, restore such a one in a spirit of gentleness, each one looking to yourself, so that you too will not be tempted. Bear one another's burdens, and thereby fulfill the law of Christ. For if anyone thinks he is something when he is nothing, he deceives himself. But each one must examine his own work, and then he will have reason for boasting in regard to himself alone, and not in regard to another. For each one will bear for each one will bear her own load. The one who is taught the word is to share all good things with the teacher. Do not be deceived. God is not mocked, for whatever a man sows, this he will also reap. For the one who sows to his own flesh will from the flesh reap corruption. But the one who sows to the Spirit will from the Spirit reap eternal life. Let us not lose heart in doing good. For in due time we will reap if we do not grow weary. So then, while we have opportunity, let us do good to all people, and especially to those who are of the household of faith." This is the word of God for me and for you, the people of God. Thanks be to God, and shall we pray. Oh God, I am grateful today. Indeed, we thank you for the beauty of the snow. We are grateful for the way it forces us to pause and to stop and to slow a bit. I am grateful for the folks who are in this sanctuary. I am grateful for the folks who are joining us by Facebook Live. I am grateful for this church. Oh God, I am so grateful. And I am grateful for my friend the Apostle Paul. Oh God, may we apply his practical teachings to our life this day and this week. And it is in Jesus' name that we offer this and each one of our prayers unto you, our God. Amen. I mentioned some weeks back in a sermon my new affinity for the television show Blue Bloods. It is, if you are not familiar with it, though the show is quite popular, so my guess is many of you are familiar with it. It is a police show featuring Tom Selleck, a much older Tom Selleck than I grew up on, but nonetheless, still an excellent actor. He plays Frank Reagan as the New York Police Commissioner. Each episode of the show contains a Reagan family meal. The family gathers together around the dinner table. They are a Catholic family. So they say grace and they cross themselves before they eat. And gathered at that table These sorts of dynamics take place amongst the Reagan family. The Reagans, they laugh together. The Reagans, they cry together. The Reagans, they fuss at each other. The Reagans, they fight with one another. They're all there at the table for a weekly meal. And they laugh, and they cry, and they fuss, and they fight, and they bear one another's burdens. Each time I watch an episode of Blue Bloods with that family meal, I am moved, oftentimes quite literally to tears. If I understand Paul correctly here in Galatians 6, and may I be as bold as to say to you, I think I'm on his wavelength today. The Apostle Paul would appreciate as well a Reagan family meal. Paul's words in verses 9 and 10 are striking. Listen at what he says. The apostle says, "Let us not lose heart in doing good, for in due time we will reap if we do not grow weary." Verse 10, "So then, while we have opportunity, let us do good to all people, and especially to those who are of the household of faith." One more time. Paul says, "Let us not lose heart in doing good, for in due time we will reap if we do not grow weary." So then, while we have the opportunity, let us do good to all people, and especially to those who are of the household of faith. And there Paul goes again. There he goes again, being all practical and stuff. Do you remember from 2 weeks ago when we ordained our new deacons from Colossians chapter 3? Do you remember that the Apostle Paul said, "Whatever you do, Vicky, whatever you do, Dana, whatever you do, Ashley, whatever you do in word or deed, do all things in the name of the Lord Jesus Christ." How practical is that? And here in Galatians chapter 6, he is right back at it, our practical Paul. He tells us to do good. And he tells us to do good to all people while we have opportunity. How hard is that to understand? How difficult is that for us to wrap our minds around? Paul, master of lofty theology, can also get down on our levels, and he can simply say to us, "Do good to all people." But there's more. What exactly does it mean to do good to all people? I suppose it could mean 1,000,001 things. But in this case, notice what Paul says in verses 1 and 2. He says, "Brothers and sisters, even if anyone is caught in any trespass, you who are spiritual, restore such a one in a spirit of gentleness, each one looking to yourself so that you too will not be tempted." And then verse 2. Listen to this, church. Practical Paul says, bear one another's burdens. Bear one another's burdens, and thereby fulfill the law of Christ. Paul says here, do not kick someone when they're down. We sinful human beings, we disobedient human beings have a tendency to do just that. And Paul says, when someone has sinned, when someone has trespassed, when someone is not having their best day, they're not their best self, do not kick them when they are down. I've heard Andy Murray use these exact words recently. I don't know how many of you are following the Australian Open that is underway now. But Novak Djokovic, the #1 tennis player in the world, he showed up in Australia to defend his title unvaccinated. Australia has a rule that to get into their country, you have to be vaccinated. Djokovic thought he had some sort of an exemption, and he arrived and they said, no exemptions. So Djokovic is not playing in the Australian Open right now. He is back in Serbia. Andy Murray was asked about this, and Murray said, it's a mess for everybody. It's a mess for Novak. It's a mess for the Australian government. It's a mess for tennis. But I am not going to kick Novak when he is down. I am not going to do that. And that's what Paul says here. He says, look, if anyone is caught in a trespass, restore such a one in a spirit of gentleness. Don't kick them when they're down. And Paul says, bear one another's burdens and thereby fulfill the law of Christ. We are not to rejoice in someone else's misfortune. Do you ever do that? Are you ever tempted to do that? We are not to rejoice in someone's misfortune. When someone is down and out, we are to offer them a hand up. For a variety of reasons, and Paul says, look, if your brother or sister falls, next time it could be you. That could be you. Here verses 3 and 5. For if anyone thinks he is something, if anyone thinks she is something, when he is nothing, when she is nothing, that person deceives himself. But each one must examine their own work, and then they will have reason for boasting in regard to yourself alone, and not in regard to one another. So practical, Paul says that we are to bear our own load, that we are to take care of ourselves, that we're not to kick somebody when they're down, because next week that could be us down on the mat. We're to carry our own load, and then we are to bear the burdens of other people. We are to suffer with them. Again, verse 2, how more practical can one get? Bear one another's burdens. Bear one another's burdens. Bear one another's difficulties. Take somebody else's difficulty on your shoulders and sympathize with it. And when you do so, Paul says, you are fulfilling the law of Christ Jesus. Indeed, there he goes again. Paul, my friend Paul, your friend Paul, as practical as he can be. 2 weeks ago, whatever you do in word or deed, do all things in the name of the Lord Jesus. And here, bear one another's burdens and fulfill the law of Christ. If somebody is in a trespass, you help them. You don't kick them when they are down. You do good to people. You do good to all people, especially people who are a part of the household of faith. Marvelous. Recently I said to you, I made the observation in some sermon somewhere that Christian community is hard. that authentic Christian community can be so difficult. We gather for the worship of God with people that irritate us. That is, except me. I irritate no one. Okay. But we gather with people for worship who irritate us. We gather for the worship of God with people who just know how to get under our skin. We gather for the worship of God with people with whom we have had conflict, sometimes serious conflict. We gather for the worship of God with people whose behaviors and actions and language and speech we do not find pleasing. That's all true. That's all true. But now I remind you that this same dynamic occurs every time a family gathers for a meal. Yeah. Every time you sit down at table with your family, I suppose especially so on Thanksgiving and Christmas when there are more in town. Every time you sit down at table with your family, like the Reagan family, there are people at that table that you love and adore, and those same people also irritate you and get under your skin, and you don't always approve of their behaviors and their actions, and you wish they would do things differently. Every time you gather at table with a meal, for a meal with your family, potentially there has been serious conflict through the years with a brother or a sister or a spouse or a niece or a cousin or whatever. You know. And so, remember that as the Church of Jesus the Christ, we are family. I know I irritate you sometimes. I know it. And you know what you do to me sometimes? You irritate me sometimes. Yeah. You call that family. You call that Christian community. And as the church, we are family. Warts and all. We are the body of Christ. And so, we bear one another's burdens. In fact, hear verse 10 again. I was struck by this. Paul says, so then, while we have opportunity, I guess he means while we are alive. So then, while we have opportunity, let us do good to all people. Let us do good to all people. Now notice this, church, and especially to those who are of the household of faith. Especially to those who are of the household of faith. And there he goes again. There he goes again. Practical Paul. Being as practical as any preacher can possibly be. Amen.